Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Ruth Osime.
And I am Majekodunmi-Oniru, here for another important episode. Today, we will be discussing educational expenses, especially in relation to the increase in the cost of education across public schools nationwide. We have knowledgeable special guests joining us today, so stay tuned while we get started.
Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. The dream of every parent is to provide the best education for their children. It's one thing for parents to live this dream, but another when it becomes increasingly difficult to do so because of the hike in school fees and the alarming rate of inflation. The news of this increment has left many parents frustrated and anxious about how they will cope with the financial strain. Recently, UNILAG authorities announced a rise in tuition fees for both new and returning undergraduate students, citing the current economic conditions as the reason behind this decision. The management has since announced the reduction of its fees after meeting the representatives of the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS. But this move has had little or no impact in the rising cost of other factors required in running public and private institutions. For universities and public schools, these hikes have been blamed on poor financial support by the government and rising inflation. While efforts to implement scholarships and loans for students continue, many are uncertain about their future. As parents lose confidence in the ability of public schools to educate their children, they now mostly prefer fee-paying private schools, but private schools are also not excluded from these hiking fees. Some parents have voiced their concerns as the rising cost of living and operations are limiting access to education and beyond the reach of many parents. The sad fact is that this tuition takes the highest portion of parents' annual income and has reduced the standard of living for households.
Very well said. Indeed, many students are uncertain about their future. Every Nigerian who understands our nation's challenges knows the extreme importance of education today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Not just education, but quality education, and where feasible, highest quality education. Many students in public universities nationwide are grappling with various economic difficulties, and most recently, they are protesting significant increases in fees which they deem ethically impossible to afford during current economic era. Progressive education is a fundamental human right to every single Nigerian citizen, regardless of wealth class. Higher education in public universities is mostly free for citizens in many countries worldwide, including Germany, Iceland, Norway, Spain, and France. In Rwanda, higher education is free for students studying education to become future teachers. In Libya, under Gaddafi, free and subsidized education increased the nation's literacy level from 25% to approximately 90% nationwide. High-quality education builds leaders, prolongs life, eliminates extreme classism, ageism, tribalism, and minimizes foreign dependency while magnifying wealth and global relatability. The return on investment on education anywhere in the world is one of the highest of any government funding. I want my children, my descendants, and every Nigerian who so desires to attend universities of Nigeria, provided we will get the very best education as citizens with free or subsidized costs based on our income level. More viewpoints coming up with our special guests, but first, a very unique report on today's topic.
The importance of education can't be overemphasized. As the human race constantly evolves globally, getting quality education is not cheap, as it requires necessary investment to develop educational sectors in every country. As the summer break draws to a close, it's time to gear up for the new academic year. Transition from vacation mode to the classroom can be both exciting and challenging for students, teachers, and families alike. This period presents an opportunity for everyone involved to set the stage for a successful and enriching learning experience. However, The hike in school fees poses a threat to students who seek education, which should be made affordable. As universities across the country begin new session next week, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, parents and students started protests as more varsities continue to hike their fees amid a worsening economy.
When did they want us to see 200 plus for school fees? 25,000 naira to 200 plus for school fees. When they want to see that?
ASU, as well as the Association of Parents and Students, warned about the likelihood of mass dropouts of students following the hikes in fees by universities across the country.
I don't understand why they cannot listen to us. We don't have such amounts. Most of us, our parents are not catering for us. We struggle life for ourselves. Did they want the board to drop out? I cannot do this.
The union was worried about developments, just as apprehensive parents expressed concerns over the implications of the hike in fees for their children and wards in public tertiary institutions.
Our struggle, and I thank God the National Assembly joining us, is for the educational system in Nigeria.
The national president of ASU, Professor Emmanuel Osedeke, frowned on the fee increase, noting that the university is not a profit-making commercial center. Today on Perspectives, we will be taking a look at the recent hike in school fees, which can trigger an increase out-of-school children, and how this can force parents to opt for cheaper education or halt the education of their wards.
Wow.
This is just so sad.
Very heartbreaking. The lady's cries was devastating.
And even from what she's saying, it looks as if she's the one even funding for herself, not her parents.
Said that.
You know, it's
said
just...
that. She said, what do you want her to do to get that money? There's nothing ethical she can actually do to get that money right now. She cannot fund her education. She cannot fund a times 5, times 6, times 7 increase in the educational fees.
And the universities will tell you it's not even the fees that is being, they're not increasing because of the fees, they're increasing because of the factors surrounding the fees. Maybe transportation, maybe feeding, maybe whatever.
Right.
Do you understand? Because I was talking to one of our guests and she was like, even in the private schools, they are facing the same problem. Everything around maintenance of the university or of any of these federal unity schools has tripled in costs.
Inflation has increased.
So inflation has increased. So even if they say, oh, they're thinking about the parents or they're thinking about the students, there's only so much that they have to increase. Otherwise, it will not make any sense.
Exactly. But public schools are meant to be government funded.
Yes, but these subsidies that we are now paying the price for, where is the money going to? We would have thought that the majority of that will go into education. That's the future of our country.
Absolutely.
It's the future of tomorrow.
Education is too critical.
It's too critical and it's being sidelined. And there must be avenues, there must be ways, there must be subsidies, palliatives, something that because this is one area that should not be compromised.
Important.
It has affected the quality of the students that we now have today.
It has. And if they drop out, what's left of their future?
How about the teachers? How about the quality of the teachers that even teach them? How many people want to do teaching? How much does it pay?
I did hear an interview from the current Minister of Education where he said that the president would invest up to 25% of the budget in education.
Yeah, but has that happened now?
Exactly. He said,
happened yet.
He said it will happen by 2024 budget, but
so if you
can do it in 2024, you can do it now. Our students should not be going through the hardship, the turmoil, the protests.
I mean, from 25,000 school fees now to almost 200,000. Where are they going to get that money from?
Where are they going to get that money from? Even I would cry for them.
Exactly. Where are they going to get it from?
Myself.
But anyway, let's keep our opinions for now and usher our guests in. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because when we come back, we shall have the pleasure of introducing our esteemed guests, Bolaji Osime, Niyi Sunmonu, and Yemi Otubela. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Okay, welcome back to Perspective here on Arise News.
Now time to introduce our guest. Joining us now is Niyi Sunmonu. Niyi is the pioneer president of the National Congress of University Academics. He has a BSc and an MSc from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, and a PhD from Hokkaido University in Japan. He currently teaches in the Department of Physics and Engineering Physics of the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Welcome, Niyi Sunmonu, to Perspectives.
Indeed. And also joining us on the program is Bolaji.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ni. Welcome to Perspectives. Also joining us on the show is Bolaji Osime, the CEO and founder of Global International College, a secondary and sixth form college with branches in Lagos and Abuja, as well as representative offices in Ibadan. Bolaji is also the CEO of Global College Online, Global Reimagine Online Academy, EdTech Startups, and Strategic Studies Placement. She is a K-12 educator with over 20 years experience. She won the Fate Foundation Alumni Entrepreneur of the Year Award and has served on the Manpower Committee for Vision 2050 for education, preferring solutions for the 30 years visions for education for Nigeria. And last but not the least is Yomi Otubela, who is the proprietor of Lagos Schools at Orile Agege, Lagos State, and the current National Deputy President of the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools. A warm welcome to both of you for being here with us on Perspectives.
Thank you for having me.
As you well know, this topic today is a very sensitive issue because it affects not just the public, but also the private schools like Bolaji raised. Now, let's start with you, Yomi. There are various factors ignited in the increase of school fees. They say it's not just the fees itself, but all other various factors surrounding running of a school. Can you educate us on that?
Yes. Thank you for having me on this show. First and foremost, let me quickly correct that profile. I'm currently the national president of National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools.
Okay.
Was then the deputy.
Okay.
I will start first and foremost by recapping the fact that inflation is global currently, and every sector, not only education, is affected by this unabated inflation rate that is affecting every aspect of our economy. And education sectors would not be treated as an entity or stand alone in this issue. So you are right to say that this is affecting every aspect of the school needs and school accessories to cut across not only school fees, the school books, the school uniform, the school furnitures, the school generation of power to drive technology and the rest, of course.
Petrol and what have you.
I'm telling you, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah, but this hasn't reflected in teachers' salaries, though. Has it?
It tax, of course, it tax.
So have the salaries increased of teachers and lecturers as well?
If it's not increased, then you wouldn't expect the level of productivities that will maintain the quality of education that we are pushing for in private sector. And sooner or later, such schools will find ourselves to be blamed because no teacher could cope with the kind of inflation that affect the transportation systems and other aspects of their daily needs.
But let me say this, every institution understands their target market. They have statistics on the income level of their customers. If our institutions have customers that cannot affect the school fees, and the school fees have hiked, at what point do we see that it's not a feasible journey?
Okay, let me say this and say it with all emphasis, that it's not all private schools that are the affected change in their current school fee, because...
At least 3.
No, but there have been private schools, because Bolaji was saying that there have been private schools who have increased their fees, but because of the backlash from teachers, they've had to reduce it.
At least 3 public schools have increased fees, at least,
okay.
that I know of.
Are you talking, are we addressing this
holistically? We're addressing both public and private.
But let's focus on the public schools, because this is where government funding should be heavily targeted towards. Education is too critical.
The issue of the public school is quite different from that of private school in the sense that...
I agree. Profitability in one end.
Not even at that.
No,
I'm
but
not even addressing it from that. I'm addressing it from government policy. In government policy currently is saying that there will be loan for education for both students and researchers.
But even that itself hasn't been resolved, because there's a bit of controversy.
I agree with you that it hasn't been resolved. But of course, that has led to the fact that there is possibility that is going to be cut in funding schools by federal government as it used to be before the advent of the current administration. Hence, every school is beginning to look inward in generating an internal revenue. And the first place to look at is the school fee that these children who attend public schools are paying. And that necessitated the increase. So it is purely and basically the effect of government policy on private education.
And if they cannot afford it, then the institution moves towards failure?
And the loan mitigant was brought in.
Let's bring Ni in. Let's bring Ni in because so that we don't make it a one-sided conversation. And of course, Balaji will bring you in too. You know, Ni, welcome on Perspective. The hike may aggravate the already volatile situation in the country, as students are already making threats, like you saw on the video, which could lead to an uprising against the federal government, with grievous consequences for the country as a whole. Could this possibly lead to another NSAS situation if not properly managed? Ni, can you hear us?
Yeah, once again, good morning, Nigerians. Good morning in the studio, and thank you for having me this morning. Okay. Yeah, if there's anything Nigerians agreed on with respect to education, and I will be speaking from the perspective of public university education, is the underfunding of this sector. Most Nigerians, if not all, agree that we have a problem of serious underfunding by the government on our hands. And with underfunding comes the consequence of the quality of the turnout, quality of the product from universities. Negatively is going to affect the quality of the product. And I would like to intervene from the perspective of knowing exactly where the rain started beating us. The rain actually started beating us around 1975, 1976, with respect to cut down by the government of funding of university education. Before then, it will interest listeners or viewers to know that Nigeria at a time enjoyed proper funding of university education, to the extent that whatever is requested from the government was granted, if not even in some instances, was above what was requested from the government. So we started seeing the effect, the negative effect of underfunding in the early 80s. And it came to a head in 1990s, up to what we are witnessing now. So there are two principal school of thoughts with respect to funding. The first school of thought says university education must be provided by government as a social service, non-profit. The other school of thought feels, no, it should be a profit-oriented thing. Profit in the sense that people who want to look for university education, people who want to get university education must be able to pay for it. And this is the two broad categories you can find anywhere in the world. What do we do in this country? Our Constitution says tuition will be free. That's what our Constitution says, Section 18, so to say. So what was done by some universities so far in recent time was not to introduce tuition, was to increase some charges. And what would be the solution to the serious underfunding? We make bold to say that government has since 1975-76 been cutting down on the funding. Up to this moment, government continue to consistently cut down on its support of university education. So this calls for, and universities in this country, public universities in this country, have actually started responding to that cut in funding by introducing IGR and some other things, and by also introducing some charges. This has started since 90s, introducing charges in universities. So it just varies from one university to the other. So we are of the opinion that we must have a multifaceted approach towards funding university education in the country, as government has obviously demonstrated its incapability to fund university education.
You spoke well on how important it is for government to fund education. Nigeria's currently elected Minister of Education, Professor Mamman, a few days ago, said government is giving public universities full autonomy to focus on new sources of funding. He compared Harvard, a private university, with UNILAG, a public university, and said UNILAG can emulate Harvard's success in alumni funding. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. Harvard started somewhere. Our universities in this country started from the premier university, University of Ibadan, in 1948. So the age of the first university in this country is not the exact age of Harvard University. The first university in this country is of younger age. That said, funding of universities will evolve. That statement, credited to Honorable Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, will not just start being implemented or being effected. There must be the commitment from the government to helping the universities with respect to the policies that will favor the kind of Harvard-like funding type. And in fact, we can't have the Harvard-like funding type in this country. The situations, the policies around the country where Harvard is different from the policies around here.
Okay, thank you.
We can think globally, but we need to still act locally here. So the point I'm making is that we must evolve funding system that will be peculiar to our need and that will be sustainable over time.
Thank you very much, Niyi. Now, let's bring Bolaji in because we don't want her to be sidelined. Bolaji, remember we were discussing earlier and you were talking about how difficult it is to run, because we run a private school. And we also talked about the funding for universities and how impractical this funding is, the issues surrounding it, the challenges that you're facing. You understand? So can you please, elaborate on it more? And then let's also talk about the dilapidated state of unity schools.
Okay.
You talked about how children, I asked about children, you even spoke about how there are not enough space for children in classrooms. Children are up to 100 in a class. So can you expatiate on these issues and how you feel that the state can support individuals and support public schools in moving forward when it comes to quality of education and quality of teachers?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I think this is a very, very important topic we're talking about because we're talking about the lives of our children.
Absolutely.
And what really freaks me out is the fact that government doesn't understand that this is the future of Nigeria. So when they're talking about funding university education and all of that, basically we need to say to ourselves what's going on with us. When they did the fuel subsidy in May and the prices for fuel went up from 180 to 600. Diesel is now 850. Guess what? What are schools going to be running on? On water?
Yes.
So all of those things has driven the cost up. And when you look at the education sector and you say, okay, what palliatives are you even giving? What subsidy? What are you doing? Because we have a fixed cost in our schools. So you have a budget that you put together and you know that budget cannot go, you cannot even take one thing out of it. All of a sudden, you're going to have to pay diesel that is now 850.
Exactly.
You're going to pay fuel. Teachers are saying they can't get to school because transport has gone haywire. Food has gone haywire. Buses cannot run and pick kids anymore. So the challenge is government has to go back to the drawing board very critically. Yes, when you were doing this removal of subsidy, I would have thought it would have been phased out. If it was phased and done in phases, then we can manage incremental whatever. But all of a sudden it was thrown in our face. So we now have this challenge. Our school fees were like this, like Otumba said, that it was this figure. And all of a sudden, all this costs come on board. Who are we going to put the cost on? It's the parents. Guess what? The parents are not earning more. Their income has depreciated as well because of all the rising costs. They go to the market, everything is expensive. You're sending your child to UK now, you're talking about 30 million naira, and all of that kind of stuff.
It's more than 30 million naira.
More than 30 million naira. So I feel so sad and I feel so, because quality education is critical. The only way, education is expensive. And we need to start understanding that in Nigeria, that so much goes into education. We have to put the teacher, quality of the teacher is critical. Absolutely. If you don't pay teachers well, you will not get them.
How do you improve that quality? Because I hear the teachers of today are not exactly...
but how do we... It's fund. Everything has to be boiled down to funding. So you start from the colleges of education. Those of us in private school are having to retrain teachers and retrain teachers. Yes. It's all money. So everything at the end of the day, you need funding. You need money to make sure that you have the best teachers. And when you have the best teachers, you have to pay bottom dollar. A lot of teachers, very good private schools in Nigeria, some teachers are earning about 500,000 naira. So when parents say, oh, you cannot increase fees, where do you get the quality teachers that's going to get the A stars for your children? You cannot put teachers of low quality before students who are going to be doctors and lawyers in future. You have to bring your best foot forward. You have to have the best teachers teaching your students. So that's why we have to we go into the market, we headhunt, and we go look for the best teachers. And just like the best doctors, you don't want to put yourself under a doctor that is going to cut you up and cannot sew you back. Exactly. So you have to get the best, and this is going to cost money. So what we're saying to government is that, yes, when they said they were removing fuel subsidy, they said the savings was going to go into education.
That's so important.
So the question is, where is the money? Where is the savings coming into education? How are you going to support? Yes, public schools have their issues because there's been, I don't know how the funding goes, because I know that what happens with funding in most governments is that it goes to overheads. So most of it might not go to the real sector, but like UBEC is doing a lot of funding for infrastructure, and I know Lagos State has done a lot of work, and they've improved on their infrastructure. So the classes are better.
But it's worrisome when you say they're up to 100 students per class.
Yes, because when people leave private schools, when private schools get very expensive...
There have been parents who have had to take their children away from private schools and take them to public schools.
Parents are moving their kids. We have low-income private schools. There are 18,000 private schools in Lagos compared to 1,600 thereabout public schools. So Lagos State is being educated by the private sector. Okay. That is clear. Okay. Government knows that. So when there's a challenge in private schools, where do they go? Because government doesn't have, in Lagos State, government doesn't have enough schools. So what we are doing is just building on the out of school children. So what is going to happen now is that most parents are going to keep their kids at home. So you're going to have more out of school. We have 20 million, and it's just going to go on and go on. And that's why we need to come to the drawing board. When we have a stakeholders meeting, everybody meets together, and they talk to us and say, look, what are the challenges you're facing? How can we help you? You're educating the Nigerian child. Whether the child is in public sector, whether it's in private sector, it's the Nigerian child. The Nigerian child, the president can come out of our public sectors easily, but that child has to be properly educated. The same education they're given in private schools should be given in public schools. Absolutely. How do we level the playing field? And that's what we're saying. And it boils down to funding. So government has to pay attention to the future of Nigeria, the children who are going to build your economy, for crying out loud. That's what we're saying. These kids are going to go out there. When everybody, we're all going to go and go one day. These young people are going to be the one. Tech, you see what's happening in the tech industry now. It's the Gen Z that are running the tech. They're earning, I was saying the other day, what's his name, Burna Boy, $1 million per show in New York. So why don't we invest in these young people? Even if they want to do entertainment, they want to do tech, why don't we put money where our mouth is? And where are we putting this money anyway, if not in our children?
But I'm curious, you know about this student's loan that was announced recently, Dr. Please let me ask you, how much is this student's loan and how are they supposed to pay it back? No. Aside from even paying it back before I finish, when they usually graduate, there are hardly any jobs left. So what will now happen if they do get this student's loan, then finish university and there are no jobs? What will be done? So what's the plan?
First and foremost, there are a committee working on this modality to assess this loan and all other issues that are arising.
How much is the loan though?
It's open to courses and the need of the children and the school. So it's not fixed, it's dependent on other factors. And the payment, of course, is based on the availability of job. No one will.
So in other words, if I get a loan and I come out and I'm unemployed for the first year or two, you're not going to put me under any pressure.
As long as you are unemployed, no one can compel you to pay the money back because you are expected to pay back from your income. And if there is no verifiable income.
But Balaji, I remember you were saying, you were even saying that
terms and condition of the
yes,
loan.
Yeah, exactly.
The terms and condition says that
depending on the lender,
under 3 years after graduation, you get a job and you start paying. Where there is no job, you don't pay.
No, but Balaji was saying that what the demands for that loan, the prerequisites for you getting that loan is quite exactly.
They're coming after your guarantor.
Exactly.
If you get a job and you don't pay, where there is no job, no one will come.
Nobody have jobs.
That's why we said
the requirements for that loan, the requirements required for you to get that loan. You were saying that it's very impractical. A lot of the students can't meet those requirements.
They can't meet it, yeah.
Exactly. So can you tell us what those requirements are as a student?
I am aware of a pretty number of those requirements. First and foremost, you must have gained admission to any of the Nigerian university, university generally. Secondly, you must have guarantors that are civil servant or equivalent in private sectors who have verifiable source of livelihood. You also must continuously be in school to assess the loan to fund your education. And the repayment of the loan, of course, is tied upon your assessing funding through your income. And this will start after 3 months of graduation and 3 years of graduation. The question is this: will everything as stated in the requirement of loan be as easy as it will be? No. There are always room for improvement. What I can only canvass for here is that we should all put hands together, just like Balaji has said, where we can come to a drawing board and brainstorm on how we can make it much, much easier. If there are any hard knock for us to deal with among those requirements, we can both provide solution to it. We have to start somewhere, no matter how it looks like.
Can you tell us how much public universities receive in government funding today?
It seems most of the questions are putting me to be spokesperson for government.
No,
and I must say here that I am limited with information about the funding that go to public.
I saw online that they receive 10 to 11 million. Some schools receive less per month.
That is verifiable and can be spoken to by those in charge.
Let's get back to Nii. Nii, are you still there? Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm still with you.
So, Nii, when you look at the increases and the issues of obligations to the unions, what are the chances of subsidizing or even student loans surviving interruptions by the teaching and teacher unions? Are their own prevailing issues likely to be a stumbling block to achieving such desires and objectives?
Yeah, it all depends on the communication or conversation around it. When the student loan was signed into law by the president, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, recently, and we got copies, we saw, as one of the guests over there spoke about, some stringent conditions for students to be eligible for the loan. And I think on the government side too, that was realized. And they called for a public interaction with respect to that. And issues have been raised in that respect. So I hope by the time the National Assembly works on issues raised, we should get a better drafted act with respect to that. So what is actually responsible for incessant strike in the universities, because I speak for public universities, so to say, is just the matter of funding. And if we have solution to the matter of funding, we have self-sufficiency with respect to funding, the matter of strike will be a thing of the past. And what smooth academic calendar can give is not quantifiable with respect to money. It's unquantifiable. So we desire that we have continuous and smooth academic calendars. And once we have that, in fact, some people, corporate organizations, foundations, that we will advocate should come into the pool of funding university education, will be willing, will be encouraged to put their fund into research that will eventually help their foundations, their companies, and in the long run, progress the nation or any environment. So as far as we are concerned, it is important that we hold proper conversations around this funding. It's a big problem. We all realize that. But we have not been approaching that problem with the seriousness it requires. Some years back, I remember the only Nobel laureate we have in this country, Wole Soyinka, advocated that we convoke meetings, town hall meetings of all stakeholders around education. As I said, around university education, I will put that, so that we can begin to have or evolve solutions, because this will take time. Evolution will take time. Some workable, sustainable funding model for Nigeria.
Absolutely.
As I said earlier on, government has demonstrated incapability of funding education. And once this problem is not solved, we're going to be having, as we've consistently had most times, half-baked or quarter-baked products. And it's not good for our nation.
Thank you for that. Ni, you attended a Nigerian Public University. You currently teach at the same Nigerian Public University. Less than 6 months ago, fuel subsidy vanished. Now, education is being hampered. Can you describe your understanding of the plight of Nigerian students today when they say the increase in fees is ethically unaffordable and they would have to drop out? How important is it for government to continue funding education by all means necessary?
Thank you very much. I will put it this way. We find ourselves right now in a serious dilemma with respect to the removal of fuel subsidy by the pronouncement of the president on 29th May this year. It has attendant negative effect on a whole lot of things in our facets of life. And the parents, or Nigerians, especially the parents in this case, are going through excruciating pains with respect to even earning livelihood. And we're yet to see in concrete terms and in concrete and lasting terms the effect of the policies of the government. We understand palliatives, in quote, which is a short-term thing, has been given, and the government is trying to do a host of other things. So in the midst of that, the parents are also to have to face or have to cope with increase in charges in our universities. We say that will be too much. So we want to advocate that the increment should take into consideration this factor of excruciating pain around effect of subsidy removal. That has to be taken into consideration. That has to be considered seriously. I understand the fact, and I agree with the fact that funding is a problem in the university. And government should also not abdicate its responsibility towards funding. And we must institutionalize other sources of funding. There's no better time than now to start doing that, so that we cushion the effects of the paucity of funding in the university quickly and as we move forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ni. Bolaji, let's get back to you. Now, most people have said reducing the cost of governance, expenditure on frivolous contracts, and spending more funds on things like that would be better transferred to the educational sector. But do you think that move is enough to solve the problem in this sector?
I think it's good to reduce cost of governance.
But compared to what we need,
I know, but there's a hue and cry about salaries.
Yes.
There's the bloated civil service. If we can reduce that and channel that to the critical sectors we're talking about, health, education, and all of that, that's where the money is needed. So reduce the cost of governance. So critical, very important. But I also say to school owners who are out there that, all is not lost. We can also reduce our own cost. Do you get? For example, in my school now, I'm changing and saying I'm doing solar. So we have to, like Otumba said, we all have to come to the table. Inflation has gone up. So what are we going to do about it? We have started a program that we have said to parents, and we're partnering with the US organization, that we can do 4 years fully funded scholarship for students who want to go to the US. That is over $200,000 saved. So long as the student is academically good. And why we're doing this is that we're saying that even if a student is disadvantaged and comes from a poor home, that student should not be stopped from going to a good university like MIT. When you go to a good university like MIT, automatically when you finish, you get a top job.
Of course.
Hopefully you come back home. But I'm talking about how do we give access to our young people to make sure? So scholarships, financial aid, repayment plans. Schools should look at repayment plans. You need to keep your students. Therefore, you have to come to the table with your parents as well and speak to them and say, what can you afford? Can you pay in whatever? Banks also have to come to the table.
But speaking of repayment plans, is it true that in some schools, they make the parents pay monthly? The parents can pay school fees monthly instead of paying per term.
Absolutely. Low-income schools, some schools are charging 12,000, 10,000. So we look at the budget of the What I'm trying to communicate here is that everybody must be educated. And money should not be the deterrent. So how can we all come to the table? Low-income schools, high-income schools, BIS, Global International College. How do we all come to the table and make sure the Nigerian child is educated?
Of sort, because the quality of teachers today, I'm sure...
I know.
Dr. I mean, university of those days...
It's not the same.
It's not the same as university of today. If you compare the quality of education of universities in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it's not the same today. Just like the quality of teachers.
But the beauty about, when you talk about teacher quality, technology has made things easier. You can be educated on YouTube now, unless a teacher is lazy. Fundamentally, a teacher is supposed to have, what you're supposed to have as your education. But it is lifelong learning. So teachers should go and make sure they also are educated and they make sure that they are reading their stuff. You can't leave university 10 years ago and you say you want to come and teach
but
maths.
the quality of students that we get today, which is why a lot of these international firms don't want to employ, unfortunately it's sad to say that, don't want to employ students who went to university here. Their quality is very substandard.
I rather want to say,
and that is sad.
Concerning the quality of education is not as bad as it's been projected.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, but I've seen university students write letters, and I'm ashamed to call them university students. Have you seen them apply for jobs? The English they write.
Rather, we should talk about the corruption in all aspects of Nigerian sector.
Which is
we understand
the educational system.
Which is affecting the education system.
But what we're saying is that apart from the corruption, the quality, I've seen university students write application letters and is alarmingly poor.
And I've also seen university children writing scholarship exam to top university in the US.
Of course.
And I've sounded so well.
Many of those were self-trained. I have spoken to such people. They were self-trained. Like she said, they went to YouTube. They are teachers. They learned at home.
No, we can't write off the teachers.
But the quality of education in our universities, let's be honest, is substandard. Very, very substandard. We don't have international students coming here to learn. We have Nigerians going everywhere else to try to learn.
Guess what? The amazing thing is that they go out and they excel. And you're looking at it thinking, these are students, people who grew up here, who studied here. So imagine if they were given the ample opportunity and the right provision, how far they would even frog leap.
Oh no, the educational standards here are low.
So nobody is saying that they don't have...
The quality is affected. There is no way you can ask students to stay at home for 7 months.
We can't undermine that. It is bad. The quality is bad.
A 3-year course will take you 7 years.
You can't talk about students who do not have access to technology to learn because of non-availability of energy. All these come to play, but when you give the children and the teachers a right environment to perform, I'm telling you, we have gotten a good number of quality teachers, a good number of outfits that are with quality education, both at public level and private level. But overall, we are having challenges.
That's even undebatable, because I agree with you. I mean, in America, the amount of black Africans doing exceedingly well.
Absolutely.
Majority of them are from Nigeria. They have gone on to create new ventures.
We have to be creative.
Do phenomenal stuff.
Government has to be creative.
So imagine if the government supported.
Government can't fund education on its own. It's not possible. To send a child to school will cost you at least 4 million naira now. It is not possible.
If they can
no, they cannot fund education.
No, what she says is that if it's 4 million naira, how many parents can afford that?
And government itself is limited in its funds as well. Let's face it. So look at the charter house concept in America, for example. They put the money in a private school, but it's government students can go there. So you now get private schools who have the quality teaching the public school students. So that's the charter house thing. So they're saying government, yes, bring the money, but let us bring our teachers to the table. And let us make sure. The important critical thing is that the students must get good education. How are they going to get it? That's what I'm saying. So we can come to the table and talk about
I wish we had more time. But anyway, this is something that we can discuss. It's an ongoing debate, and we hope that every day that is being discussed, solutions are being put to the table. And we have to look for a way forward, because this is the future of our children.
Absolutely.
And Nii, is Nii there with us? Nii, thank you for being with us here on Perspectives. Is there any last word? Yeah. Is there any last word that you would like to put in before we round up for the day?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I would just like to say that as much as this conversation will not go away soon, government, our country must develop, must rise up to it now. There's no better time than now. And the teachers must be motivated in such a way as to give their best. Lastly, government must learn. Nigerians are smart people. Government must learn to patronize our hybrid towers with respect to looking for solutions to problems within the country. We have researchers, despite the challenges in the university, and by so doing, they will not only know the extent of the problem, they will know the extent to which Nigerian researchers can contribute and even improve. They should stop going outside to learn short training and what have you.
Thank you.
Our people can do it here.
Thank you.
Let's start the conversation now.
Thank you so much, Nee. Thank you so much, Bolaji. Thank you so much, Yemi. I wish we had more time, as always, to discuss further on this issue, but it is something that we need to revisit over and over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
Because we have so much potential in our
So
land,
much.
and we have to harness it. We are tired of them leaving us to go and harness and go and use this potential outside.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to hearing from you again.
you.
Thank you so much for being with us here on Perspective.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, students are suffering under the hikes of fees today. Funding of education used to reflect the natural priority, but today it does not. Education should be a right, not a privilege. Given the best of all possible worlds, the government should place emphasis on increasing the amount of funding that goes into programs that purely and simply awards funds to students who really cannot afford full tuition. In fulfilling this duty, we bring home the sweet consolation of seeing our children rise to destinies of high promise, which are considerations that should occur to all. Always remember, as I keep saying, life is a learning curve, and we hope that Nigeria one day will be a nation and a country we'll be proud of as we once were. That's all we have for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Ruth Osime.
And with me, Otubela Majekodunmi-Oniru. It took 147 trials to establish the very first light bulb. Our students are wiggling through heftier trials today. Greater affordable education in Nigeria is achievable with significant government attention and funding. The success of every single student contributes to Greater Nigeria, and Greater Nigeria contributes to making the world a better place. Every human deserves a good life of quality education and merited success. High-quality education provided by merited leaders is an essential key to a better world today. Our world needs a much stronger dosage of healthy love, quality education, and greater humanity. Thank you for watching Perspectives. Thank you to our very special guests for joining us today. Have a great weekend and see you all soon. Goodbye.